Oh, okay. Oh, it's on. It's on. Okay. So, today's Thursday. It's going to be a nice day in the Tampa Bay area, which means when I say Tampa Bay area, I pretty much am talking about Hillsborough and Pinellas County. That's what I call the Tampa Bay area. Okay. So anyway, yeah, I say have a great day in Tampa Bay. Anyway, today's topic. Why do I do these stupid vlogs? I don't know, because I'm bored. If I'm not gardening, I'm YouTubing or writing some poem. Anyway, that's just me. I don't have anything else to do. This is what retirement is like. Bitch, 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 and do stupid shit. Um, but today, on this weird frickin' brain of mine, is Piaget. He's a psychiatrist, whatever. He wrote a bunch of books about psychology. I took those. I took those courses in high school and college. In high school and in college, and then I've been on psych meds. I've been. I mean, I should have a frickin' master's or doctorate in psychology at this point. I really should. But anyway, let's talk about that. I'm talking about Piaget because just like Maslow, I compare Piaget to Maslow, both psychologists. Maslow had the pyramid. I liked his pyramid. It's not the food pyramid. He had this sort of reach yourself, your actual authentic self kind of thing. And at the bottom of the pyramid was the basic needs. So to get to your higher self, you got to get beyond that, right? That was the pyramid. That's Maslow. But Piaget, he's like, he talks about stages of life, the development. And then, I mean, it's kind of like, biologists kind of talk about it too. He's more like a doctor, more than some spiritual enlightenment, which I think Maslow was kind of going for. But where with Piaget, he's more like talking about stages, and that's kind of like when you get past your 20s. Once you're in your 30s, you start thinking about Piaget because you've already got like 2 decades behind you. You know, if you got more than 2 decades behind you, then you start thinking about how Piaget looks at life and development. And it's really weird because as anybody who has ever called themselves old would know this feeling of, even when you're old, sometimes you feel young. And it's so weird. So, but anyway, I want to talk about how me and Piaget, well, how I relate to Piaget in the sense of how I look at my life, because in a it's February, and in 2 more months I'm turning 53. And a lot of people think that my obsession with birthdays is ridiculous. Maybe they're right, but I can't help it. That's just another part of me, like my OCD, my ADD, my autistic part, my bipolar part, my schizophrenic part. I have all these weird personalities, and you know birthdays mean something to me. All holidays mean something, whether I celebrate them or not, whether I'm all alone or whether I'm with someone special. It doesn't even matter. The point is that they matter to me. Holidays matter to me. And birthdays definitely, because it signifies a personal timeline. Like, okay, I'm 52 today, but in a couple months I'll be 53. When I was 49, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna be 50 soon." And everyone was like getting annoyed because I couldn't stop talking about turning 50. But to me, that was like really huge. It was a huge birthday because I hadn't had like such a significant birthday since 21. You know what I'm saying? 21. From 21 to 50, everybody just pretty much doesn't really think all the other numbers between 21 and 50 is any big deal. But so I made this big, huge deal about turning 50, and I was getting on everybody's nerves. But okay, now I'm going to talk about the stages. How I'm going to look at it when Piaget talks about child development and the stages from baby to adulthood. He talks about it basically. I think his framework was set up from 0 to 21, But I'm gonna extend that framework because once you get past 50, you've got almost 4 and going almost 5 decades of looking at stages of human development, not just a mental or physical development. So, and in society, I think this is where Piaget is sort of the bridge from psychology to sociology. Now, I've never been a big fan of sociology, but the 40s and into the 50s have sort of like forced me to think about sociology, because I, as much of a loner as I am, isolation doesn't always work for mental health. So, look, I'm not saying I'm like perfectly sane. I'm just saying I have a lot of experience using psychology to try to help me get through the day. All right, like right now, I need a cigarette. That's my freaking medicine. I want one so bad, but I'm gonna hold off. All right, so my stages, my personal life stages, my experience from 0 to 15, the first 15 years. That's what I consider my childhood. From 0 to 15, from 16, or from 16 to like 21. That was like teenage years. From 21 to 50, that was sort of this adult thing, the adulting. Yeah, I was adulting from 21 to 50. And then after 50, I'm in this weird thing that I don't even know how to label. So, but I look at it mostly as decades, because if you look at it from 21 to 50 being the adulting, let's just skip the childhood part right now. I don't want to talk about the childhood part. Let's just go to 21 to 50. That's 20s, 30s, and 40s. That's 3 decades. That's 3 decades. I, the 20s, I had no real major complaints. Not really major complaints. My 20s were pretty much well adjusted and happy for the most part. I mean, I had my drama like everybody else, but uh, for the most part, the 20s were well adjusted and happy, mostly like my childhood, even though there were traumatic events that happened. um, I was mostly well adjusted. Um, in the 30s is when I was suffering major PTSD in my 30s. And the funny, or not funny, it's not really funny. Mm, Ironic, I should say. Sometimes I use funny to replace ironic. But the strange contradictory thing about the 30s, while I was suffering from PTSD and trying to understand why I was traumatized. In the 30s. I don't remember. You see, it was like while I was going through that PTSD, that shock, and that try to get out of shock kind of thing. The whole 30s are a blur. It's a blur. It's like I can tell you almost everything that happened from my first memory to 20 to 29. But then after 30s, once the 30s started, that whole decade, we're talking about 10 years, a whole decade that I hardly remember anything. I don't remember any TV shows. I don't remember music. The 30s. So what was that? We're talking about, mm, like the after right after 1999. So basically from like 20 2000. Yeah, the start of the millennium. From basically 2000 to 2010. I hardly remember anything. I start having memories again at about 2008. So I won't give it the whole 10 years. From 2000 to 2008, it was like I was in a coma, like a PTSD coma. I don't remember anything about it. And it's weird because I only recall this one show that I caught in the late 90s called The 30 Somethings. And the 30 somethings were kind of like these, like friends, but without all the comedy. They were kind of like these 30 somethings. Some of them were single, some of them were married. It's kind of like Sex in the City, just a show about people being a 30 something. I didn't have that. Just like I didn't have in college, I wasn't part of a sorority, hanging out with the girls doing effed up things like that. I was a single mom in college. So I didn't have a normal college experience. I didn't have a normal high school experience, not really. I didn't have a normal 30 something experience. So right there from teen to 20s to 30s, there was nothing normal about my beginning stages of adulthood. There was nothing normal about it. And then I turned 40 and I got married, which isn't normal because most people don't get married for the first time at 40. So that wasn't normal either. And then I tried to have a normal marriage, but it really wasn't normal either. Even the marriage wasn't normal. So, but I do remember it, at that point, from 2008 until until 2018. So from that decade, from 37 to 47, that decade, I feel like even though it might not have really been normal, it felt normal to me. It felt more like my childhood. That marriage section felt more like my childhood. Um, which was normal to me, even if it wasn't normal. But what is normal? That's the deep word that everybody argues about. If I pick my nose right now, someone's going to say that's normal, and someone else is going to say that's not normal. Whatever. But here I am at this new stage of life. Okay, the divorcee, who's you know retired. I have no job to define me. My kid is grown up, so I have empty nest, but I'm not really like crying about empty nest because I'm glad that he made it that far, to adulthood. So I'm not crying about empty nest, but it is an empty nest. I don't have a marriage thing going on. I don't have a career thing going on. And I'm going to be 53 with nothing to define me. Nothing. I know in my last video, I kept talking about nothing, nothing, nothing. But this is it. I mean, I look in the mirror and I go, I'm not ugly. I look all right for my age. But what does that mean? Just because I'm not ugly, what does it mean? All the talents or skills that I had for the past 40 years have only amounted to making YouTube videos and writing poetry. That's it. So whatever I learned the past 40 years, that's what it amounts to, a YouTube video and a poem. And I don't know what to do with myself. Some people, who care might joke, that I'm difficult or that because I have psych issues, people don't want to hang out with me or because I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe I'm too formal. I know that's a shocker, right? How am I formal? It's a total contradiction. It's like I'm a rebel because I don't like people telling you what to do, but I believe in freedom, free will. But then I'm also a formalist, whereas I also do believe in proper, and I also do believe in certain, not all, but some formalities I do believe in. So has that make sense? How can I be a rebel and a formalist at the same time? Anyway, the stage is this 50s something. Now, forget the 30 something because that was a coma to me. The 40 something was just learning about what marriage was all about. And now I'm in the 50 something and I have no clue. I'm more clueless in my 50s than I was in my 20s. As a, you look at a 20 something year old, if you're older, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, you look at a 20 something and you go, you condescend to them and you say, "Pff, you don't know anything. You haven't been through anything." That's partially true, but I'm telling you, at this stage in my 50s, I felt like I knew more in my 20s. So how does that make sense? Anyway, that if any of you read my poetry and I keep being like a broken record, a redundancy about it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, or I don't know what to do with myself, I don't know what to do with myself. It's because I'm in my 50s. And if you've been through the 50s, then you might understand why I'm so redundant about that. But if you haven't been through the 50s, then I can't blame you if you don't empathize with me because you don't know what the hell I'm talking about.